So I realize that the main limitation to what I will allow for myself is this one big belief, thought, that there really isn't enough. That we live on a finite planet, and that if everybody on this world lived the way the people in the United States live, there wouldn't be enough. And therefore, when I hear you say, we live in an expanding universe, I don't believe that. I can't hear that. So, can you speak to that for me, please?
Well, it's easy to understand why it would be hard for you to believe, because you are aware that no one's trucking any resources in from other planets. In other words, it feels finite in the sense that you can't see any other pipelines coming in. But sometimes it's helpful to contemplate how the planet got here to begin with. Where did it come from? Where did all of the resources that you are mining and discovering come from? And it's easy for us to understand because we know that there is thought, and then there is thought form, and then there is manifestation. And so we have no difficulty understanding how the planet got here to begin with, or how it continues to replenish itself, or how the resources continue to recycle. You recycle things in a very awkward way. Your planet recycles things in a very efficient way. In other words, the recycling process is always underway. It helps us because we know that from the standpoint of the law, that if you have the ability to identify a desire, that this environment has the resources to deliver it, and that there is no limitation in that promise. We have the benefit of longer view, where we have seen so many civilizations continue to live and thrive and prosper. But we certainly understand why your logic tells you otherwise. Perhaps it's one of the reasons that we encourage so much the reaching for the alignment with who you really are, because when you align with that broader perspective, the feeling of well-being comes over you. Tell us, just for sake of conversation and for hopefully the sake of soothing you some, which resources are you most worried about?
Well, the ones that we would consider non-renewable. The ones that...
And which ones are those? Because we've not seen any of those.
I would say oil.
Oil is non-renewable?
Well, there is a limited amount of oil, has to be, in the earth.
Well, how did the oil get there?
Through millions and millions of years, supposedly, they say.
So you are concerned that your consumption rate may supersede your ability to create it?
Yeah, that's a tiny portion of my question and my concern, because it seems to me that the way we're living outstrips the planet, period, that we are living in such a way that the planet cannot support us. And oil is one of those factors.
Has oil always been the primary fuel for energy?
No, not until recently.
And so, in the same way that it has been discovered to meet the demands of the requests, is it conceivable that there could be other?
Absolutely.
And is it possible that, like the steam engine, oil could become obsolete and
Absolutely.
no longer necessary?
Hopefully.
Does that make you feel better?
Sure.
In other words, it is our promise to you that if there is an asking or a demand for it, that the resources are here. You see, we touched on this briefly earlier, that the population of the planet is orchestrated from broader non-physical view. It isn't something that is population control by the governments who allow only one child, or by the beheadings of those who have more than one. It really is not so different from the animal management from broader perspective. And we know how sometimes when man gets involved that it can feel like there is a distortion of that. But the population of the planet is powerfully and perfectly managed from broader perspective. And so it is our promise to you that more potential desirers than your planet has the ability to satisfy will never come forth at one time. It just cannot be.
But that doesn't satisfy my question because I don't believe that. What I believe is that a lot of our
Well, so then-
desires are manufactured by people who just want to make money and get rich for no good reason.
We are certain that that is true because most everything is economically driven. But the economically driven cycle is not out of balance with the laws of the universe because it comes from the basis of each individual trying to do what the individual perceives is best for self. And the reason that we have no concern about it is because we understand that every individual that asks will be answered. For example, let's say that the desire that is exuding out of you and maybe thousands of others is that the resources not be used up too soon. And that this desire has been born out of the contrast that you are living. So that desire now is something that is now being satisfied. And as it is being answered, inspiration is coming to scientists to utilize things in other ways. It is one of the magnificent things, there are many, about contrast, where each time it feels that you're getting lopsided. In other words, too much of something causes a desire for something else. And when that desire for something else comes forth and Source answers it, now there is a sort of rebalancing. Jerry talks about how it feels to him like the pendulum swings, and it will get all the way over here, and then it will start swinging back, and it will get right about to where he thinks is perfect, but it won't stop there. It will keep going all the way over there, and it will come back to all right where he thinks is almost perfect, and it will go all the way over there. And we say, but in that swinging process is the continuing asking and answering. And so we know it is not very satisfying to have someone who doesn't even claim to be from here, who is non-physical, who pays no rent and eats no food, to talk about how you don't need to worry about your resources, but you really do not need to worry about your resources. And if we were standing in your physical shoes, the message that we would be reaching for today would not be, how can someone convince me that this finite planet really is infinite and that whatever we are wanting will always come. We would be reaching for soothing thoughts that would bring us personally into alignment. Because when you think about it, thoughts of overutilization do not feel good. And the reason that they do not feel good is because they are not in alignment with what the broader part of you knows to be. In other words, that's the way the guidance always works. When you get crossways of who you really are and what you really know, that's where the discomfort comes. All shortage thinking, no matter how validated it is by the facts, feels uncomfortable because it is cross-current with the laws of the universe. We could say to you, well, just hang in there and your longer view will make you feel reassured. But meanwhile, we would say, just do your best to appreciate the powerful resources that keep turning up and watch for evidence of more. In other words, if we were standing in your physical shoes, we would say, universe or God or Abraham or whoever you're wanting to project your questions to, please give me evidence that helps me to believe in the well-being of future populations. And then you will be privy to scientific discoveries, to new innovations, to water purification systems, to more prolific utilization of soil, to more management of resources, to cultural changes in what is desired. In other words, that pendulum that is swinging, many people from shortage are wanting more, more, more. And now we are fast approaching classes on demanifestation. People are getting so buried in stuff. In other words, there are many people who are really wanting to downsize. They are buried in all of the stuff that they are trying to dust and insure, you see. And so and the history books will be full of the gluttonous, ridiculous people that surrounded themselves with all of this clutter. And now, what a lovely society we've come back to in our simpler lifestyle. In other words, we've seen it all. You think that your society is the most technologically advanced it has ever been, and even that is not so, you see. You feel better?
Yeah.
We are really not trying to convince you of the eternal nature of your planet. But we are wanting you to at least reach for thoughts that give you some reasonable control of the way you feel. Because there is nothing more uncomfortable than to see a trend in society that is going to a place that you powerfully do not want it to go. The feeling of powerlessness will take your breath away. And you have no reason to feel powerless because you are powerful. Do you know that one concerned individual could watch an event, a global event, and the details of the event could foster within you a powerful desire, and that if you singularly could get in alignment with your desire, you could single-handedly rectify the global event. You don't even have to get them to agree. You just have to understand, first of all, the well-being that exists and the power of your own alignment. You are a teacher. It does not surprise us that it is upsetting to you when you find a thought that makes you feel so powerless and find no way of rectifying it. And maybe what you're helping us say to you is when you look out and the facts seem to defy your ability to satisfy your own desire, then you have to take another tact at it. And that really is what our message is about here today. There are women being beaten who cannot imagine being free from it. But until they can imagine it, they won't be. There are people starving who don't know anything else. But until they can contemplate something else, they won't know anything else. And this is just a bigger version of that, you see. Something more?
No, thanks.
Yes, indeed.